actually a formal diplomatic message that's being delivered to China by a U.S. diplomat protesting this, number one. And number two, there's all the backlash that China has, that Google has generated in terms of they may pull out of China altogether.
You know, it's amazing that it's taken these kinds of attacks to really put China in check over cyber attacks. I think they are a very powerful country, and we've seen, you know, even at the summit on climate change, you know, in Copenhagen, that China was the most powerful country there, not the United States. So I think the U.S. is feeling pressure to respond a little bit more forcefully than we have in recent history.
Yeah, and, you know, Google's CFO, Eric Schmidt, advises President Obama on policy matters. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't have picked a worse company to mess with than this one. And, you know, in terms of money, Google does a very insignificant amount of business in China. I think they only do about $300 million worth of business in China compared to the $22 billion in revenue that they generate everywhere else. So to them, it's almost a drop in the bucket, but they are pushing back. You know, I like that they're standing up, they're taking a stand, and they're seeing it through. On a related story to this one, there was a law firm in California that recently filed a copyright infringement case against the People's Republic of China on behalf of one of this firm's clients. The next day after filing this lawsuit, this law firm in California was the subject of cyber attacks. So I think this is a bigger problem, and we're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to face it head on, and I think this Google episode helps bring it to the forefront.
Well, Dinesh, I would like to know what you as a lawyer think about the story that I read in the New York Times called "No Longer the Golden Ticket." A lot of young lawyers have all of these aspirations to leave law school with great jobs, earning six figures. They may be working crazy hours, but they're assured employment and they're ensured good compensation. That seems to be changing. Things are not as they appear in the new ABC television drama called The Deep End, which features, you know, young lawyers and all of their aspirations to move up in the world. Those days appear to be over. Firms shed more than 4,600 lawyers last year, according to a blog that tracks the legal industry. Bonuses are shriveling. An increasing number of firms now compensate associates based on their performance, not necessarily based on how long they've been there, getting these automatic pay raises every year. So obviously, you know, there are law students who, you know, given the Great Recession and all of the other businesses that have been affected, they're worried about whether or not they're going to have stable jobs. And now, let's take a step back. Most of us are thinking, yeah, but why are we going to feel sorry for the lawyers? They're still going to be doing fine, right, Dinesh? But one of the people interviewed in this article pointed out that in terms of an hourly rate, actually they're making very little because now they're working far more hours for less money. And probably people are beginning to wonder if it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think it all goes back to the reason you're going to law school in the first place. If you're out there and you're thinking about going to law school, if you truly love the law and you want to make a difference in some area, or there's a specific area that interests you, then I'd say go for it. It's still a great profession. However, if you're simply going in because you think, oh, you know, I need to get a higher degree, and when I get out, I'll be able to get out and make some money, and I'll be able to do this and that, then you really want to rethink that, because more lawyers were laid off in the last 2 or 3 years than I think ever before in history from big firms. So you've got that pool of lawyers out there competing for every job along with all the new graduates. And they have more experience. They're going to be picked, of course, before the fresh grads out of law school that have no experience. So it's a very tough environment. And when you get out, you may be saddled with well over $100,000 in debt. So it's one of those things, you know, you really have to look at why you're making the decision to go to law school.
In the wake of a lot of negative economic news, I was very happy to see a story about India's poorest state, Bihar. In northern India, Bihar is known to be a very poor and almost lawless state, but the new data that the Bihar government is reporting is showing a lot of growth rate of 11% between 2008 and 2009. And what they're saying is that the regional leadership that changed 4 years ago has made a big difference. Nitish Kumar leads a coalition government with the Hindu nationalist BJP party. They've apparently really been trying to pull things around. The government spending on infrastructure and social development has been pegged at $444 million every year. Automobile sales in the state have grown 700%. And, it sounds very good. There's lots of construction happening there. Cement sales are up. Of course, there are also the doubters out there as well. One of the economists at Patna University was saying that the federal government numbers were showing the growth rate of Bihar at only 5%. So you kind of have to wonder where this 11 and 5% disparity might be resolved. But they're also saying that the savings rate remains pretty high, and one would hope that this state actually is on the upswing.
Hindus in India are actually being encouraged to consider the environment as they wash away their sins. And what I mean by that is the Ganges River is one of the most sacred places to Hindus. And it's where people go to bathe. It's where people go to often take the ashes of their dead. And there's a new campaign started by the government to raise awareness of the environmental impact that all of these activities have on the river. One of the biggest problems that they have is untreated waste flowing into the Ganges from a lot of villages that are alongside the river as it travels down to the ocean. So they're actually trying to make low-cost latrines available for use. They're trying to improve the function of sewage treatment plants. They're trying to make electric crematories available so that people can take care of the dead and perform the last rituals instead of the ways that they would normally do that. And the thought is that they want to try to clean up the Ganges over the next 20 years and to make it a better place.
Well, that certainly really is good news, Dinesh, because the Ganga River is a holy river for Hindus, and we believe very much in its sacred qualities, but we also know that the reality is that it's polluted. So to think that now we're finally taking some active measures to clean it up is very heartening. The relationship between India and Australia is certainly strained right now because a number of attacks over the past year on Indian students that are studying in Australia. A lot of these attacks have taken place in the Melbourne area, which is supposed to be a vibrant, diverse place where people from all different backgrounds and nationalities come together. And there are a lot of Indians who once were very interested in studying in Australia. Apparently, because of some of these attacks, admissions are down 50%.